welcome to another episode of Table for Us. Pull up a seat and sit at the table. It is January 26th, y'all. We have made it through another year. But before we get into today's episode, as always, if you have been following me and subscribed to my channel, I give all praise and glory as well as honor to God, because without Him, nothing that I do would be possible. He has been everything to me. He has gotten me through so much. He has given me strength when I was weak. He has given me the hope, and my hope is in Him, my faith and everything. I could not be where I'm at today if it was not for Him. I always want to give Him all the respect and honor before I do anything. Now, if you have been following me or you are new to this channel, new to our podcast, we have been hosting our podcast show on a platform called Podbean. If you are somebody who are interested and you've been thinking about starting a podcast but not sure where to start, make sure that you check out the links below. My podcast is hosted on Podbean. It is an amazing platform. I use it to go ahead and push out my episodes to YouTube, to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart. There's so many other podcast platforms that you can connect to your Podbean, and it will push everything out for you, audio as well as visual. I use Descript, and I will put the link below for editing my podcast. It makes it so simple to edit everything, chop things up in clips for social media content as well. There are so many other podcast platforms as well as editing tools that are out there, but these are the ones that I use, so I'll make sure that I put those down below. Let's get into our first episode for 2026. So last year we covered so many different things, and if you are someone who is new here, everything that I talk about are my own personal experiences and the things that I have actually witnessed, not something I've heard secondhand or personally have not gone through. Okay, so what we're going to be covering is basically talking about being proactive versus reactive. And I'm going to dive into, again, my own personal experiences and how we as a people of color, or just people in general, we need to be more proactive than reactive. One thing that I have noticed is, including myself, is that, and if you're somebody who goes to the gym, everybody makes New Year's resolutions about, I'm going to work on my fitness, I'm going to be going to the gym. And people who actually are consistent with going to the gym, they usually hate January through March because the gyms be packed, because everybody be on this, I'm about to lose this weight, I'm about to do that. And then they fall off around February and March, okay? I will say, and I've done a little bit of research, 9% of the population that makes New Year's resolutions actually stay consistent with it. The rest, they fall off. Okay. So I want to talk about basically being more proactive than reactive. One thing that I have noticed, and it drives me crazy, GoFundMes when somebody has passed away. The only thing that's for sure in this life is death and taxes. Everything else is up in the air, right? We're not sure if that's going to be what we're going to experience or not. But everybody know that you got to pay taxes and we all gonna die. So knowing this, I don't understand why people don't get life insurance. Now, you do not have to have a $1 million policy or anything like that. You can go and get something as low as a $10,000 to $20,000 policy, something that is going to cover your funeral services, cost, whatever, burial, so that your family is not left trying to figure out how they're going to bury you, cover your final expenses, having to put GoFundMes up there in order to cover your funeral costs. Now, if you are a parent and you have young children, I'm guilty of this because I didn't have it at first. Get a whole life policy, something where it's okay, I'm only paying on this for a set term, and then after that, I don't have to worry about it, and they have this policy for the rest of their life. A whole life policy, you can say, okay, I want a 10-year whole life policy. So in 10 years, it's paid. The policy is not going to expire. It's not going to go anywhere. And some whole life policies have living benefits. Some whole life policies have cash value that will build up to whereas they can access that cash when they get to a certain age. Okay. And then you have IUL policy, which is a index universal life insurance. So with those, they do have some terms as well where you can say, okay, I want this IUL and I wanted to basically be done with me putting money in it at 20 years or whatever. So after the 20 years, you stop making payments, it continues to build cash value. I will have someone on my podcast. His name is Mariko Gill, coming up sometime in the next couple of weeks that will dive into insurance. I am not an expert in insurance, but I'm just throwing that out there because I want us to stop with this GoFundMe thing. I think GoFundMe, whoever created it, I understand the reasoning behind it, but I feel like it should be more for situations like, what's an example? Someone's house caught fire and the insurance only covers a certain amount. And there's this other part that, so now it's okay. We need to create this GoFundMe to help this family or whatever. I feel like GoFundMe should be for stuff like that. Or maybe even for sports. Because if you have children and you're like, oh, okay, I can take care of them, but now they want to play sports and sports are very expensive and you want to do a GoFundMe. It's almost like doing a fundraiser, basically. But I feel like we should not, and this is my own personal opinion. I don't feel like we should be doing GoFundMes for funeral costs. That's something that we can be proactive about and make sure that we have even the smallest policy to be able to cover funeral costs. And if you can, go ahead and get a policy that covers a little bit more. My life insurance policy covers funeral costs. It's set to an amount. So here's I'm going to get Mariko to come on here and talk about this, but when you set up a policy, you want to make sure that policy will cover your assets. So if you own a home, you have a business or cars and stuff like that are not paid off, you want to make sure that those assets are covered within your policy. So when you die, the family can pay that off, or really you should have everything in a trust. The trust will take care of paying those things off, and then you'll have your funeral costs. And again, I'll have him come on here and talk more about that. So that's something that we can be proactive about instead of being reactive, right? The reaction would be, oh my God, this person had passed away, have a life insurance policy. So we got to get this GoFundMe or whatever the case may be. Okay. Another thing that I feel like we need to be proactive about is if you have a W-2 job, right? We need to be proactive in saying, okay, I'm not going to allow this to be my only revenue stream. My mentor, right before I got into business and marketing and all that stuff, Greg Cardone, he said that you should have several streams of income coming in, several streams of revenue. You can have your job, but you should also have some additional streams of income. So God forbid something happens with your job, they lay you off, the company goes under and everybody no longer has that job, you'll have other streams of income that are coming in instead of just sitting there and saying, oh yeah, I'm good. I've been at my job for however many years, so they're not going to lay me off. I'm not going to lose my job. And then you lose your job and you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Now you're being reactive to something that has happened instead of already having those plans in place. So since this is the beginning of the year, right, we're going to make plans and we are going to stick to those. Now, we're going to start small. So there are a ton of things that we can do to be proactive. First of all, we want to get a planner. I don't have my planner in front of me, but I do have a planner. So what you want to do is basically set some goals. I'm actually looking at my board right now because I'm looking at my 2025 goals. And I'm going to be honest with you guys because this is uncut, raw, and transparent and so forth. I'm looking at this and I have let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 18 things on there on this board, which is my 2025 goal. And I have 3 things that have been checked off. Now, I don't look at that as a failure. I look at it as a win because I do have some check marks on there. Now, what we should be doing is tackling things one thing at a time. Okay. So pick one thing that you want to work on so that you can have a proactive plan in place. And then once you have accomplished that and set that plan in motion, whatever the case may be, then go to your next item that's on that list, right? Because if you try to tackle everything at once, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to burn yourself out. You might spread yourself thin as far as finances and so forth. So find one thing. For example, if you don't have a life insurance policy, let's go ahead and get that taken care of, right? if you don't have an emergency fund set up in the event that you lose your job, let's talk to a financial planner and make sure that you have at least, before, I remember when I was saving money, they said that you should have at least 3 months of your salary saved up. But now, with the way the economy is going, that has now changed to 6 months. You should have at least 6 months of salary saved up. So if you get paid $5,000 a month, you should have $30,000 saved up, basically, in a nutshell, right? And actually, that's not even your emergency funds. That's just your cushion in the event that you lose your job and you have that 6 months of savings, right? Your emergency funds would be more for other things that are actual emergencies, medical expenses, car stuff, because Lord knows when you have a vehicle, for some reason, it seems to know when you have extra money in your pocket and then it wants to start acting up. The transmission want to start slipping or it want to start leaking or your brakes want to start grinding. It's so crazy. I don't even understand what it is. I'm like, is this some type of, or your warranty now has expired. So now everything is breaking down because the car knows you no longer have a warranty. And if you're a homeowner, again, another thing, having emergency funds. I talked about this in my owning versus renting or whatever, where you have all these things you're responsible for when you own a home. But even honestly, when you're renting, there are different things and emergencies that can come up. And if you don't have renter's insurance, well, guess what? Now you got to come out of pocket for certain stuff. Everything is not going to always fall on your landlord, even if you're renting. Okay. I want to basically touch on a particular scripture that pretty much talks about being ready for different things, right? So in Proverbs 22:3, it says, the prudent sees danger and it takes refuge. So basically, it's like telling us that, all right, you can't foresee the future, but you can plan for it, right? So let's just say winter is coming, like animals do this, right? They store up different stuff because they know it's going to be cold or it's going to be snowing and are not going to be able to go and get the food and all that stuff that they need, or the food is not going to be there. So they make sure that they plan ahead of time, right? And they're ready. Okay. And then the scripture talks about, but the simple keep going and they pay the penalty. So that's basically talking about people who are not proactive, right? So they become reactive. They bear things out when things come their way. We have to stop doing that. That is hindering us as individuals, as the people, women, mothers, whomever. We have to be better planners and we have to stick to those plans. It goes back to the whole thing where people set these New Year's resolutions, but they don't stick to them. Okay. So when we set these goals, we need to stay on top of these goals. But we also need to make sure, as I already said, that we're not doing too much and putting too much on our plate at one time. And then we get burnout. If you have a particular project that you want to work on, whatever that project is, start small. Start saying to yourself, okay, I want to start working on my weight. I feel like I'm Oprah Winfrey. Like one minute my weight is down, the next minute is back up. And it's just because different things be going on in my life. I'm getting older, so hormonal changes and so forth. But it's more so about being healthy than about just being small, is at least for me. I'm still not where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be, which I'm loving. I have to realize and celebrate. Actually, we all need to celebrate even the small accomplishments. So if you set a goal and you don't actually accomplish that goal, but you are at least not where you used to be, celebrate that. Pat yourself on the back. That's the other thing. We have to stop being so hard on ourselves and recognize when we have accomplished something, when we have done something right, and stop focusing so much on what didn't go right or what hasn't happened yet. Okay. Being proactive and planning ahead of the time. And also, I talked about in a previous episode, we have to stop being comfortable and settling. So, by being proactive and planning and not settling, you put yourself in a better position, right? How do I want to say this? Essentially, you set yourself up for success, whatever that success may be, by actually being proactive in life, being proactive in your job, being proactive in whatever it is that your interests and so forth are. Okay. So let's get into some more things that we can basically be proactive about. Okay. So almost 2 years ago, actually coming up on 2 years, I was laid off from my job. I was on that job for almost 10 years. I literally was shy of 10 years. It was coming up on 2 years when they laid me off. And I'm going to go back to what my mentor said as far as having multiple streams of income. I treated my business, I had my business, I've been having my business for some years before I even got laid off, but I treated it as a side business. But I'm very grateful and thankful that God placed it in me, to create that business. And it was something I had been doing for years, but I actually turned it into an actual business and got registered, got my name, got my email, my website, and all that good stuff. So when I did get laid off, I wasn't panicking. There was a few people that, oh my God, I'm like, no, I'm gonna be okay. And honestly, it was January when I got laid off, and I knew I had my tax business. I knew I had my credit repair business, and I also knew I had my print and design business. So for me, I'm like, I'm gonna be good. What I messed up on was I wasn't realistic about the end of the year. Now, that's on me. I wasn't being proactive. I didn't plan ahead and say, you know what? I have this much money. And that year, I actually made about 60,000 in my tax business that year. Plus, because I got laid off, I had a severance package and so forth. I got all happy and went shopping and stuff instead of planning for the quarter, planning for the year, and keeping in mind that there's going to be some slow months. That was my first time just being a complete and total entrepreneur. I then had to, because I wasn't proactive, now I'm reacting to my situation because here it comes and it's a slow time. On top of that, it was, what else was going on? I feel like there was something else that was going on. And I had to tell myself, okay, what the heck am I going to do? I got to go find some other money or whatever that I can make legally. What can I sign up for? What can I learn that will bring me some quick money? Instead of, if I was planning ahead and looking, I know better now, but some things, like if we don't know, yes, we're going to be reactive. But if we can actually plan ahead, that's why I'm having this episode for you to think about all these things that could basically happen that you can also plan for. Most of it is financial stuff, right? Even for your health. So I'm going to take it back to the whole life insurance thing. So when Mariko come and talk, he's going to dive into living benefits. So living benefits would cover you in the event that you're still alive, but something happens to you, your health wise, right? Whether it's cancer, Alzheimer's, and he'll get into all this stuff like a critical injury or something. And now you can't work. When you work, you pay, or your job pays into a short-term disability. And if you add on long term, you can pay into that, but only pays you so much. With the living benefits, you can actually get either a lump sum or you break it up into monthly to where it's okay, I've gotten into this critical accident or something like that and I cannot work. So the short term is not going to help me because this is a long-term injury or long-term illness. That living benefits would kick in and be able to help you. Or if you had an additional stream of income where you physically don't have to do something, like some type of course or digital products that you already have put together, teaching people how to do other things, that is an additional stream of income that will come in for you in the event that you are ill, injured, and not able to physically do your job, right? And honestly, I feel like even with the short-term disability, they'll hold your job for a little bit and then they'll have to bring somebody else in, right? So even then, your job is not safe. So you want to have that basically in place. You don't want to basically, like for car insurance, for instance, I know some people who actually was like, why do I need to have car insurance? I'm a good driver and I pay all this money into car insurance. I never get into an accident. And what happens to my money? And it made me think because it was like, that's a good question because it's okay. It's not building no cash value. You're not getting anything. But there are a couple of insurance companies out there that will reward you for not getting into an accident. You don't actually get your money back if you don't get into an accident. But they will, I believe is it Nationwide? It's one of them where they have the vanishing deductible. So if your deductible is $500 and you go without having an accident, then they'll slowly take off of your deductible, which I feel like is a pretty good incentive for people. But you basically want to have something in place for different things that can transpire. Okay, so the other thing that I want to talk about is the lack of preparation and faith. So for me, I didn't have anything in place when it came to my finances. So what happened is, again, I had my businesses, but I didn't have an actual saving set up, but I was able to get a large amount of money and I didn't do what I should have done with it. Now that I know better now, it's okay. That money could have been taken to invest in another business. And then that would have now produced an additional extreme of revenue for me as well. So you basically want to look at different ways that you can make sure that you're prepared. Like when God basically told Noah, I am going to make it rain for 40 days and 40 nights. I want you to go and prepare this ark. Okay. And I want you to bring two of each living creature on the earth, male and female, then you and your wife, your sons and their wives. And I want you to go into this ark so that you are prepared and safe. He also told them to grab different foods and grains and everything. God told Noah ahead of time. So a lot of the times God will speak to us and he will be telling us exactly what it is that we should be doing and how to prepare for certain stuff. In the Bible, it talks about a lot of preparation. It talks about how Joseph stored up before the famine. Like right now, we are in a recession. Prices are constantly going up. Nothing is coming down. So we need to be prepared for whatever is coming forward. Even if we don't know what it is, we still need to be prepared. So if that's stocking up, if you see sale items for canned goods and things that, have a longer shelf life and it's on sale, buy it. Just have it already basically just stored up. I am from California. Earthquakes happen. There's actually literally an earthquake every day. And one of the things that I always grew up is being ready for the big one. That's what they always call it, the big one. And I was 11 years old when the big one hit for us. So we grew up and they would tell us the history about the 1906 earthquake and how it was so massive. I forget what the magnitude of that earthquake was, but I want to say it was somewhere in the 8 or 9 or something like that. I should have looked it up before I started this episode, but it was a huge earthquake that hit and it rocked San Francisco. There were fires because a lot of gas lines broke, buildings and everything basically crumbled. And when they went to rebuild everything, they were proactive in saying, okay, we know that this city has a major fault line that runs through it. So we're going to make sure that we're proactive in how we plan for the future and make sure that we have these contingencies in place that students know what they're supposed to do. So we would have earthquake drills. And when they built the buildings, they made sure that they built them differently because they knew, like before, the construction of the buildings weren't stable. And that's why they crumbled and cracked and fell down. So they said, okay, we're going to start building these buildings, but we're going to build them on top of rollers. And what that is, the buildings, of course, are strong and steady, but the foundation, they're sitting on rollers. So when the earthquake would come, the buildings are meant to sway, basically. So the city was like, okay, we're going to be proactive and plan, although we do not know when the next earthquake is going to hit, but we are going to make sure that we're ready for it. Okay. So a lot of things basically talk about how we need to be better at being proactive when it comes to our living and our situations. I already talked about having a W-2 job, being laid off, being fired, being injured, and all those things. But another thing that I feel like is important is being proactive when it comes to your relationships. My grandmother raised me to be a very independent woman. Okay. And she said that when you are in a relationship, what that other person brings to the table is extra. Do not depend on that. And at any time, right, either I could no longer be here or that person can no longer be here. So this goes both ways. We need to have a plan in place. I feel like a lot of people if you have one person that's the provider basically of the family, you are always depending on them to take care of everything. But God forbid something happens to them, they pass away, they get injured, or they leave you. Now, what are you going to do? Okay. We cannot be depending on what it is they bring us to the table. We have to make sure that what we're capable of and what we can provide, we can still do it and we can manage our household, our life in the event that this person's income or they're not there anymore. We should always have that plan in place, basically. And as much as we don't want to think about it, if you're married or you've been with someone a very long time, you still need to plan for it. You still need to have some type of contingency plan in place, right? Because just life be life and stuff be happening. We have to get out of this mindset of not thinking about or planning. And then as soon as something happens, we're panicking and we're stressing and we have this anxiety and we're trying to figure things out. We have to stop. We're literally doing that to ourselves. I can't even say life be life and life does it to us. Like life is going to do what it do. But if we're proactive and we're planning ahead of time, then it's not going to have that much of an effect on us. It's going to affect us, but the magnitude of that effect, it won't be so great. Okay. So my biggest thing that I want everybody to take away from this is one, Happy New Year. Let's be more proactive. Let's plan, set short-term goals that are attainable for you, right? That you actually know, okay, I can do that as long as I stay consistent with X, Y, and Z. Once you accomplish that, set another goal. Okay. Keep setting goals. You could have your big goals and your big dreams, but set small ones that are going to get you each step closer to that, right? Make sure that you are looking into life insurance and make sure the life insurance that you have is something that has living benefits tied to it. And again, I will have Mariko Gill come and sit and talk about how you can obtain a life insurance policy that is affordable, it's not going to break your pockets, and how you can set a payment term on that, on how long you're going to pay for that. Now, don't get it confused with term life insurance versus the other ones. He will break all of that down. Have you an emergency fund up to 6 months of your salary. Again, if you make $5,000 a month, you need to have $30,000 basically saved up for your cushion. Okay. And then you also need to have an emergency fund for other stuff. Now, the amount that you need to have for that emergency fund, you want to reach out and talk to a financial planner. They will go over all of your expenses, your income, and they will have a good suggestion for you of how much your emergency fund should be. Okay. The other thing is making sure that you are not relying on one stream of income. Use your job to fund a business. I honestly feel like every W-2 employee should have some type of a business. Okay. I feel like you should have something. So if there's something that you're interested in, something that you're good at, something that you do, but you're like, can I turn this into a business? Let's just say you're really good at baking, right? You can turn that into a side business where you're selling cakes or cookies or treats or something like that. If you're really good at cooking and you love to cook, like you actually enjoy it, 'cause I don't like to cook. I know how, but I don't like to cook because I was forced to do it when I was younger. But if you are really good at it, food is going to always be a thing. People love some good taste in food. Start a business on being an interior decorator. If you are a great stylist, you put things together for yourself and you know what look good, don't look good, what's in season, what's not in season, whatever, how to basically look like you stepped out of a high fashion magazine, but it didn't cost that much. Start a business being a personal stylist. There are a lot of people out there who would pay for that because they don't know how to dress. And they're like, look, help me look right. Help me dress my body type. There are so many different things that you can do to add some additional income to your monthly income. If you're someone who is really good at talking and so forth, and you have some things that you can teach other people, then go into being a coach. There are so many other ways that you can basically be proactive when it comes to your finances. Okay. So, with that said, don't wait for life to happen. Start preparing for the life you say that you want. That is my closing quote. I'm going to say it again. Don't wait for life to happen to you. Start preparing for the life you say you want. So, whatever that looks like, start preparing for it. And then there's one other thing that I'm going to leave with you guys. If you don't know who Pastor Mike Jr. is, go follow him. Follow him on YouTube, follow him on TikTok, follow him on Instagram. I'm not sure if he's on Facebook, but I follow him on all those platforms. Go follow him because he has some really strong messages. And one of the messages that he has said that he was talking about, and I only caught like the tail end of it, excuse me, was basically prepare for what it is you're expecting. Okay. So that ties into my don't let life happen to you. start preparing for the life you want. So anything that we're expecting that you want in your life, start preparing for it. If you want to move, start packing up boxes. Be proactive. When I wanted to move, I was packed a whole year before I even decided on where I wanted to move to. I didn't even have a place I was moving to, but I knew I wanted to move. So I was like, let me just go ahead and get some boxes and start packing stuff up that I don't use on a regular. So whatever that looks like for you, just start preparing for it. Be prepared for the unexpected. And that's all I have for you guys. So again, Happy New Year's. Cheers to a better year.
Hi, I'm Nicolette Royal, and I am the owner of NRO Company. So that is Nicolette Royal Original Company. That is what that stands for, NRO Company for short. And it is a print business. And I actually started this business. It's actually, oh my goodness, it's about to be 6 years that I started this business. I started this business with a dream. My grandmother used to teach me how to sew when I was little, and I went to a sewing class one time. My best friend had invited me to a sewing class at her, she's in the mosque, and they were having a class, and she invited me to come. And I forgot how to sew, but in that class, what were we doing? We were working on a tote bag, and I was so amazed by the hands-on and everything, but it was almost like riding a bike, that everything that I remember my grandmother taught me just came flooding back in. So my children bought me this cute little, oh gosh, I don't have it here, but it was this cute little sewing machine. I named her Tabitha. And I just started using that and was like, I'm going to start making tote bags. I'm going to sell these tote bags. And eventually I got a bigger sewing machine, a working horse sewing machine. And what happened? The pandemic happened. So my shift from making tote bags shifted to actually making face masks. And I made a lot of money during that time. And then I ended up getting a cry cut machine. And that cry cut machine allowed me to customize these face masks. I would have a lot of people, once things start opening up, those face masks started becoming party favors for different people. And then I started doing t-shirts, and most of the t-shirts that I would do would be custom orders. So I would have people saying, hey, can you, because a lot of people started their own business. So they would say, hey, can you put my business logo on this shirt or so forth. So I would do a lot of those, or I would have people coming to me and they would have parties and they wanted something special on the shirt. Or it might have been, I started doing bonnets, which actually that took me so much time because I would actually hand make the bonnets, go get the fabric, cut it out, sew it, do all that good stuff, and then put whatever the person wanted on there. But it was so time consuming that I just couldn't do it anymore. My children used to help me initially with a lot of things, but as they start getting older, they started getting busy with their own things. So I had to figure out a way to keep my print business going without burning myself out. So I end up meeting or running across this young lady's page named Bougie Barbie on Instagram. She's actually, I believe she's retiring from digital products coming up soon. But I was able to get a couple of her courses and learn how to do print on demand. And basically, what that was, I would sit there and design. So I used to go to Academy of Art College. So designing things and arts and all that was always a thing of mine. It was never something I wanted to go into full time, but it was just a gift that I had. So I started designing different things using Canva. And then through her, she introduced me to Printify. So I would then take my designs, put them on shirts, hoodies, bags, or whatever. And then I created an Etsy store. So all of my products are on Etsy. I will have my Etsy shop link below, and you can purchase whatever you want to purchase from my Etsy shop. Or if you're interested in starting your own print on demand business, I do have an ebook, and I will list my Stand Store link at the bottom so that you can be able to start your own print on demand business. It's very easy to do. And if you're not that creative with designs, there's all this AI technology out there. If you have an idea in your head and you just don't know how to actually put it into a design, you can tell like AI and it'll do it for you. So I am Nicolette Royal, owner of NRO Company. You can reach me at 702-969-3605. You can text the word print and I'll send you the link, or you can go to my Etsy store. You can also follow me on Instagram at NRO Company. So thank you guys.
Cheers to being a better version of ourselves. We should always be aiming and striving to be better than who we were yesterday. All right. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. You guys that have been with me for a while, I appreciate comments and your likes and your shares. If you are new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you turn on the notifications. We have new episodes that come out every week. And again, if you are someone who is interested in starting your own podcast, make sure you click those links below so you can get started with your podcast. Thank you so much for pulling up a seat to the table. Until next episode, you guys have a blessed one.